What sounds familiar? It's a feel-good book. But there's no way you have made it so far in life without hearing of Pride and Prejudice. But I have read all of them. Yeah, I've read them all. It's really good. It's really good. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Risha and this is For the Love of Classics. So today's video is going to be me sharing my 5-star classic recommendations with you. So I was just going through my Goodreads to see which books have I rated 5-star, and a lot of them were classics. So I decided to share all the classics with you which I have rated 5-star on Goodreads. There are a total of 18 classics I have rated 5-star on Goodreads so far. I have rated Aesop's Fables as 5-star as well, but for the sake of this video I'm not going to share that because it's a collection of fables and sort of like a short story collection. Instead I'm going to share all the novels / classic books which I have rated 5-star with you. I do apologize if the lighting during the video just goes up and down because UK weather is so weird. It changes from minute to minute, so even though it looks a bit sunny right now, it's going to be cloudy soon. It just keeps changing. So a lot of my favorite authors made it to my list of 5-star classics, obviously. So I wasn't surprised by a lot of them, but some of them did throw me off because I did not remember rating them as 5 stars. So obviously Jane Austen is here, Charles Dickens is here, Elizabeth Gaskell, the Bronte sisters, some Russian guys, and just a few other ones which don't really fit a particular group. Well, they're not in any particular order. I've rated them all 5 stars. So I'm not just like re-rating them. I'm just sharing these books with you which I thought were absolutely perfect examples of work. So I couldn't really find any reason why I shouldn't rate them 5-star. There were a lot of other books I rated 4.5 stars, so they were just falling a little bit short of being perfect. I am not going to share those books today because even though they were really good classics, there was just something missing in them. But these ones I really didn't find any problems with. Another thing which is quite surprising is that out of these 18 books, 8 are by female writers and the rest of the 10 are by male writers. So it's not a half and half, but I guess I wasn't reading a lot of female writers because a lot of classics are by men. There are obviously female writers and they have definitely made it to my list, but a bigger proportion is that of books written by male writers. Without further ado, let's just start in no particular order. So I'm going to talk about the first one, which is obviously Middlemarch by George Eliot. So Middlemarch is a novel which was first published in the year 1871 to 1872. So the story is set in the fictional town of Middlemarch, and that is why the book is called Middlemarch. It follows the lives of a lot of different characters in this town. So what I love about this book is that George Eliot is very empathetic towards her characters. She describes their flaws and their good points. I love the complexity and depth of each character in this book. It explores gender roles and how women in the Victorian society were limited in their pursuit of knowledge. So Dorothy is one of the main characters of the books. She hopes to achieve more knowledge by marrying a philosophical man, but it just chaos erupts. And then there's another character who's a doctor. He's a doctor in the small town of Middlemarch, and then scandal erupts when he basically falls in love with this woman who's very different from who he is. It is a book which is both thought-provoking and entertaining. This book is a must for anybody who enjoys social commentary and the exploration of human nature. The next 3 books which I have rated 5-star classics are by Charles Dickens. I haven't read all of Charles Dickens' books yet, so I'm not sure if there are others out there which are even better or as good as these three. But these are the ones which I have read and absolutely loved. So the first one is Hard Times by Charles Dickens. This book was first published in the year 1854. Don't mind me just looking at my notes down here. So this is one of the shorter books by Charles Dickens, and it was absolutely amazing and mind-blowing. It's a very straightforward book. It's about the impact of industrialization on a small town and its people. And we have this father who wants his kids to learn this lesson that they need to work, they need to just keep earning money, and that's it. But they are deviating from something that's really important, and that is the humanization and just education, and that is basically what this book revolves around. But it does it in such a good way that the story, the characters, they are all, again with this book, are really thought-provoking. It's a very relevant book even today, and I would say definitely if you want to read a more realistic, less comedic book by Charles Dickens, then Hard Times is the way to go. Also, it's really small, so a very quick read, and personally I really enjoyed it, and I feel like it has a similar vibe to that of Middlemarch, being that it's more realistic, more a critique on human nature, and just a compelling story along the way. So the second Charles Dickens novel, which I have rated 5-star, is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. So this book is a coming-of-age story. It's about this guy, David Copperfield, who we follow along from his childhood to his adulthood. So David is coming from poverty, and then he comes to his young age, he experiences love, he becomes a writer, and this is like his whole life story. But along with his story, there are a lot of other fascinating characters in this book which just bring humor to the grim storyline. So Charles Dickens discusses a lot of poverty during the Victorian times, but then there is a balance of grimness and comedy because there are a lot of funny characters, which is something Charles Dickens does really well. He balances humor with more, critique, and the balance of both of those keeps you really entertained. Even though it's a chunky book, it's really good. It's really good. I mean, by the end of it, you feel like you've really enjoyed it. I personally did not fall in love with the character of David Copperfield, but reading about him was very entertaining. The next book by Charles Dickens on my list is Little Dorrit. I have really fond memories of reading this book. This is another book published in the year 1857. Also another long book by Charles Dickens, but it was really good. I would say I like it more than I like David Copperfield, because I like Little Dorrit more than I like David. So Little Dorrit, or Amy Dorrit, is this girl whose father, Mr. Dorrit, is imprisoned. This father, Mr. Dorrit, is a very flawed person, but Amy continues to love him because he's her father. And we see in this book the effect of money on people, on families, how it settles them down, how it unsettles them and uproots them from where they are. It's just so picturesque. The descriptions in the book about the prison, about the Victorian London, are just so vivid that even now, I think it's been more than 3-4 years since I read it, I have those images and pictures in my mind of Little Dorrit wandering in the prison, and just the prison is just the image of that is so vivid in my mind. And I think that's why I loved this book so much. It was so vivid. It was like watching a movie, because you could see those things because Charles Dickens was describing them so perfectly. The next books on my list are by Jane Austen. I feel like it might be a very predictable list because these classics are famous for a reason. A lot of people already love these books, and That's why I love them as well. And these are some of the books which prove that classics are classics for a reason, because they're really well written, really good stories. They are like relevant even today. But some of them books, I would share them at the end, are just some which do not get talked about a lot, and that's why you have to stick for the second half of the video. So the two books by Jane Austen. The first one is obviously Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I think it's one of the first classics I read by Jane Austen. Obviously one of the first classics I read ever. I reread it a couple of years ago, absolutely loved it again. As a teenager, I would read it almost every day, like chapters of it or passages I enjoyed. This is the second copy I have of Pride and Prejudice, because my last one, you did not want to see that particular one. It was a pirated book with really thin pages, and then I had highlighted it so much. But then I got myself this one, and obviously now I want to get a better copy because I know this is staying with me. So it's about the Bennet family with 5 daughters, and basically the struggle of their mother in trying to get them all married off. What I really liked about this book is obviously there's comedy in here, like very subtle comedy, which I love. And then the characters, the daughters, some of them are really strong, independent. The upbringing they had was not very empowering, but they do become like really empowered women. They make their own decisions, they stand up for what they think is right and wrong. Some of them, however, do not. But it's just, I mean, obviously you've either read Pride and Prejudice or seen a film adaptation or heard of it from someone, but there's no way you have made it so far in life without hearing of Pride and Prejudice. The next one is Persuasion. So this is a more, I would say, a serious book as compared to Pride and Prejudice. It's not serious. I think the writing in here is a bit mature. It's more realistic. It's a story about a family as well, and it also follows the life of one particular girl / woman, Anne Elliot. And her father's really rich. It's a story about lost love. It's like a page turner, and you're hooked to the book till the very end because you want to know what the heck is going to happen. I just love Anne Elliot so much. I see a lot of myself in her, if that makes sense. She is quiet but sensible. I sometimes see myself as that way, but she's really quiet at times, and she's patient. I just loved her character. I thought it was very mature. It was a very sensible, mature character, and Jane Austen did justice to it. I really do love both these books, so I cannot say which one of them I like more than the other, but both are amazing books. I have read Mansfield Park and I really enjoyed it as well, but I've rated it a 4.5 star. So it's not a 5, and that's why I'm not sharing that in the video today. So the next book which I would highly recommend is The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. So this is a 16th century classic by an Italian writer. It's basically a manual for the politicians, the princesses of the time, the people in power at the time. Basically for them, it's a manual of instructions as to how they should deal with situations. And when I bought it, I had no idea what it was about. If I did know, I might not have actually bought it. The only reason I bought this book is because the cover was stunning, because it was a classic, because it was on discount. I read it because it was really short, and wow, I was surprised by this one. I have highlighted so much in here because it's just a book full of quotations. It's just that, and it's like really intelligent and wise stuff. I really enjoyed reading it. It's just, what should you do if your enemy decides to do this? But then he's like really harsh about some of the ground realities, and some people might not like it because he's really harsh. He's like, defend yourself first, but that's, I feel like, Darwin's law of nature sort of thing. Like, you come first sort of thing, and that's what he's teaching the leaders. It just explains how people think, how people work, what they expect from their leader, what the leader has to do, even though it's nothing really which I would use personally, but it can be read and used in your daily life as well, because a lot of things are not just very specific but more vague and for everyday situations. So non-fiction classic, but really good. I made my husband read it as well, and he really enjoyed it as well. The next classics which I have rated 5-star are by Elizabeth Gaskell, and I'm surprised that I have rated 3 of her books as 5-star. That is saying something, because I haven't rated Jane Austen's 3 books as 5 stars, but I have read all of them. Yeah, I've read them all, and I haven't rated 3 out of them as 5-star, but for a Gaskell, I have done it. So the first one which I've rated 5-star is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. The title can be misleading, and before I actually read this book, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to, because the title of the book sounded a bit geographical. But it's called North and South because it's the story of people in the north of UK and the south of UK coming together, basically. That's why it's North and South. But for a person who's not from the UK, you would just be like, why is it called North and South? This family, the Hale family, moves from the south, where there's more gentry, to the north, which was a more working class area. So in the north, they moved to a town called Milton, which is a new and industrializing town with lots of mills. And Margaret Hale meets a lot of mill workers. Initially, she's just depressed by how gloomy and dark this place is, but actually she sees a lot of honest, hardworking people and their lives, and she comes to understand them, grows as a person by moving there. Absolutely love the romance in this book. I love the character of Margaret Hale because she learns and grows, and that's what I love about her. She has very set and fixed ideas of what's right and what's wrong. She moves to this new place and she grows as a person. So this book is about growth and learning and empowerment and understanding. Absolutely brilliant book, masterpiece. Honestly, it's been a while since I saw the movie. I should watch that BBC adaptation again. The next book by Gaskell on my list is Wives and Daughters. So this book is about Molly Gibson. Oh, Molly Gibson. She's such a cute character. I absolutely adore her. She's just like a little sister someone would wish to have. It's again a family story, more so than North and South, because North and South, I feel like, obviously explores themes of industrialization, working class people and stuff. Wives and Daughters is just about wives and daughters, but obviously the writing is so beautiful. It's just like flowers. The way Gaskell writes is very flowy. It's a long classic. It's definitely longer than North and South, but so easy to read, as I said, because the writing is very smooth. The story is about Molly Gibson and basically her love story. So her father has a second wife because her mother passes away. She has a stepsister who's very glamorous and different than Molly's. Molly's like very nice and quiet and just a happy-go kind of girl. Cynthia, her stepsister, is completely opposite. So their interaction, it's really good. It's just like a family drama type of book, but a classic. That's a horrible way to describe it, but it's really good, guys. I mean, I think I'm not doing justice to the book or the story. The next book by Elizabeth Gaskell, which I've rated 5-star, is The Cranford Chronicles. So this book is a collection of 3 short novellas. The first one is Mr. Harrison's Confessions. The second is Cranford, and the third one is My Lady Ludlow. So I've done like a full review on all these 3, which I'm going to see if I can link up here. Looking back now, I don't remember a whole lot from the plots of all 3 novellas, except from Cranford, which was about this town called Cranford, and it's a very quiet, simple town, and the people in here are leading very simple lives. They go to each other's houses, gossip a little, have a cup of tea together. But it's just the mundane everyday life of these simple people, which is so easy to read about. You feel really calm after reading this. It's just like, again, a very flowy, smooth book, but like it has a good aftertaste. You feel good after you finish the book. It's a feel-good book. If you're looking for something quiet, not too dramatic, simple everyday book with beautiful writing and great characters, then pick it up. So next I want to discuss 3 Russian classics which are on my list. All 3 of them are by different writers. The first one is A Country Doctor's Notebook by Mikhail Bulgakov. Not one of the most famous books by this guy, but I absolutely loved it because it was so relatable for me. I am a doctor, so this is about a young doctor in Russia in 1916. He moves to a small town where he's the only doctor present, and he has to deal with all kinds of patients. So it's interesting because now there is specialty for everything. So you've got a stomachache, that goes to that guy, and then if you've got a problem with the head, it goes to either neurosurgery or neurology. Like, everything is very specialized today, but here it wasn't. And even today in small towns in Pakistan, even in the UK, if you are like a GP, you see everything, so you have to deal with everything. Obviously, we are privileged enough as doctors today to then refer to a specialty, but that was not the case. And this guy, and I'm sure a lot of other doctors at the time, were dealing with everything on their own. I think a couple of different kinds of cases which he saw during the time, really interesting ones, really funny, a bit gory, so if you don't like blood and stuff, I'm not sure if you will like it, but I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. It was so relatable. Such an honest depiction of what doctors see. Starting working as a doctor for this guy was such a roller coaster, and even for me it was a roller coaster. It doesn't really matter that he was practicing in the year 1917 and I'm doing it now in 2023. It's always a roller coaster. This book just depicts it as it is. Whoa, that was a tongue twister. The second one, which one should I go with? Yep, it's War and Peace by Lev Tolstoy. So this is a very famous book. Again, a book which, when I saw the title, so a lot of these titles are just like North and South, War and Peace, like the opposites. And I, as a child or as a young person, I was really wary of picking a book like this because I wasn't sure. I thought it would be like some really serious stuff. By just looking at the title, I wasn't really induced to pick it up. Oh, it's about war. Do I want to read it? Because there's already so many wars happening around us, and it's just not a very pleasant thing. War is not pleasant for anyone. Me growing up, I've seen like a war so close to home in Afghanistan, in Iraq. I did not really want to go there because I was already seeing a lot of that in the news, on the television. But this book just is not just about war, it is also about peace. So we see this country, this family during the war, and then before the war, and then after the war. So it's a family story. It's a story about this family, different characters, how they grow, how they find love, how they deal with war, with death. It's really good. It's very long. I remember I read it during Ramadan of maybe 3-4 years ago, and I was just thinking about it because it's the first of Ramadan today, that I was reading this after Sehri time, so after we started our fast, before I went to college, and there was a gap of 2-3 hours where I really didn't have anything to do, so I would just sit in my garden and read this book. It took me a while. It is like a long book. The font in this particular edition is good sized, but it's one of those books which is on the list of books you must read once before you die, and I can understand why after I've read it. I mean, I learned so much. Only thing I struggle with when reading Russian classics is the names. It's just they're so long, but this edition really helped because it has a list of principal characters in the book. I think this video is going to be really long, so I'm going to try and rush through the rest of the books. The next one is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I read this during lockdown. Absolutely loved it. It's a book about a family as well. This particular family, there's a death, a mysterious death, and then the question arises whether it was actually a natural death or not. It's the death of this father who's a very bad guy. Bad father. He has 3 sons. All 3 of them are really different from each other, and then we see how they grow up, how they become different men, how they deal with life and its problems. Really good family drama, but also it's like an exploration of human nature, why people do weird stuff, why they do good stuff. A lot of discussions about the church as well in here, which I really did not love because I didn't understand half of it. But then the story was just like a page turner. It was like, what the heck is gonna happen sort of thing. And reading it during the lockdown was fun because everything was calm and quiet, and this book wasn't. It was just like out there. So it was fun to read it during the lockdown. I think with a lot of these classics, they really do impact where you are at life when you're reading them. So reading them at the right time in your life is very, very important. It's not really easy to tell when would be that perfect time to read a particular book, but if you read it at the perfect time, then it stays with you and it impacts you more than it would have done otherwise. Okay, the next 2 books are by the Bronte sisters. Just one of them, Anne Bronte, my favorite of the Bronte sisters, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. So this book is about a woman, Helen, who moves to Wildfell Hall, basically with her son. And there's a question mark. Where is she a widow? Where's the guy? Like, she has a son. Is he dead? Is he alive? This book, I feel like it was such a brave decision to write it by Anne, when her sisters were just writing about weird romances. She did something really good with her writing. She chose a topic which had depth, which resonated with a lot of women and continues to resonate with a lot of women. Helen is a very, very brave character. She moves to this new town with her son. So this is a book which surprised me. I wasn't sure I would love it, but I really did. And then the next one is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. This is a love story. I think it's a love story. It's a romantic classic. Very simple, very short. I read it in a day. It's Anne's debut novel and it's about Agnes Grey. She is determined to seek work as a governess after her family becomes impoverished. She's quite isolated as a governess. The children she has to take care of are like really evil, which just shows that children can be sometimes really bad, unintentionally as well, towards adults and cruel. I think The Lord of the Flies, is that the book about cruel kids? I want to read it now. I don't know, for some reason I'm just like, yeah, kids can be cruel as well. They can do like bad stuff, and that's what happens in Agnes Grey. But I really, really like the love story in this book. It's so sweet. And then I have another book which I do not have a physical copy of, which is on my list, and it is by Anthony Trollope. The only book by Anthony Trollope which made it on the list is The Way We Live Now. I don't have a physical copy of it. It is back home in Pakistan. Such a good classic. It's a long classic, don't get me wrong, but very easy to read. It's about this guy who suddenly becomes rich doesn't know how to handle it. And we see a lot of that happening all over the world. We see people making a lot of money and then just not really clear on how to deal with it. So they just like become these different people altogether. When they become rich, they're not the same. They're flaunting it, how money ruins them as people. And that's the theme of the way we live now. But absolutely amazing book. Like it just brings me joy when thinking about it. So that's the only book by Anthony Trollope on my list. Is this the 17th classic? Yeah, the 17th classic, which I have rated 5-star on Goodreads, is 1984 by George Orwell. I was really influenced into picking this book up by Ariel Bissett. So this is her favorite book and she talks about it a lot. But the only way she would describe it was, it's really good. She didn't really give away a lot about the book when she was recommending it. That was years ago. And I was just like, she's so in love with this book. What is it about? I picked it up. It was really short. It's just very weird. It's like a dystopian novel, but in the world of animals. So there's a farm with lots of animals. So there are cows and sheep and like donkeys and horses and pigs. They decide to take over. They're like done with their owners. They're like, that's it. That there are a lot of nations out there who fought for freedom, but then once they had the freedom, they start fighting among themselves for power and they become greedy for power. And that's what we see in this book. These animals become greedy. It's just like a commentary on the evil effects of money and power that can have on any people. This is another book which I made my husband read as well, Animal Farm. I read it from a different edition and he read it from this particular one and he's made notes. Would you believe someone would write something with a highlighter, like not use a pencil or a pen but actually write in? He did that. I recommended it. He absolutely loved it. And I would recommend it to you guys as well. It's really easy to read. Even though it sounds Animal Farm and not fun, it's really fun to read. So the last classic which I read and gave a 5-star rating to was The Plague by Albert Camus. This book was originally written in French and this translation is by Stuart Gilbert. Albert Camus was awarded the Nobel Prize of Literature in the year 1957, so modern classic. Another classic I read in lockdown and it was the perfect thing to read in lockdown, like absolutely brilliant book. It's about a disease, the plague, which spreads through town and they have to go in isolation. What? Sounds familiar? It was just a reminder that it has happened before. People do survive pandemics, endemics, epidemics. It's not the end of the world, but the fear in the people when they first heard about this disease was really similar to the fear COVID had, and then coming to grips with the reality of living in isolation, which we all did as well. So it was just so relatable. I think because of what just happened, if you pick this book and read it now, you are really going to enjoy it. Like reading a book at a relevant time makes or breaks it. And this book made it to this list today because I read it during a lockdown. And I had heard of this book before. I would see it in bookshops and always walk away because the covers would be like dark, not something I would lean towards. People started recommending this during lockdown and I was like, oh, that sounds good. I ordered it online, got delivered, cleaned the box, opened it, read it, and yeah, mind blown. Absolutely amazing book, like perfect. So it's about this town in Oran, which is in North Africa. A plague begins. It gradually becomes a reality, obliterating all past. And I love this edition. It's just the cover feels like rubber. It's so soft to touch, not like your usual covers. So that is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there is any book on your list of 5-star classics which I haven't mentioned, comment them down below. Let's see if we can give each other like 5-star classic book recommendations, because there are a lot of other classics which are really good, but are they like 5-star good? Because when a book is a 5-star good, it really leaves an impact on you, it stays with you, it's a book which you always cherish, you want to reread. And it's different from giving a book a 4-star, which was really good, but I'm not sure whether I'll go back to it again. So let me know down in the comments, are there other 5-star classic recommendations? And we can each of us go through the comments and see which books or which classics we should read next, because then they would be our new favorite classics as well. Please let me know down in the comments as well if there are any other particular kind of videos you want to watch from me. I mean, yeah, that's what I meant, like not from other people, just like any particular videos you want me to film. I would love to get to know what they would be. Thank you so much for watching. If you are watching up until now, I know it's a very long video, leave a crown emoji down below so I know you stayed till the very end. And I'm going to see you all in my next video very, very soon. Crown emojis, don't forget. Bye. I mean, with 4 daughters? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, wait, 5 daughters. Oh my gosh. Apologies. Ooh. Oh my gosh, stop it. She wants to achieve. And I will see you all. I'm going. So French.
Thanks for
French
watching.
is
Don't forget to subscribe for more videos.